Good morning, BVI. Good morning, world. My name is Karia Christopher, the Acting Director of Communications for the Government of the Virgin Islands. We do apologize for our late start. We may be wearing several hats. We certainly apologize for the wait. Today is July 11th, and we have a full agenda as usual. I won't say too much because we started late, but I wanted to recognize the presence of the Financial Secretary, Mr. Jeremiah Fred, our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Carolyn Stout-Igwe, and our Deputy Financial Secretary, Mr. Jeremy Vanterpool. Of course, we have the Premier here on my right. Full agenda today. I had a chance to speak with the media while we were waiting. So we'll switch it up a little bit. I'm trying, media, I'm trying. So we're going to ask the media, of course, to stand, give us their name and the media house in which to represent. And you get 4 questions today, media. 4 questions and 4 follow-ups. And of course, we want to say thanks to ZBVI, thanks to, of course, GIS, who is streaming this live, CBN Radio, CCT Live, and Flow TV. We will continue very quickly. Hope to have a very fulfilling press conference today. It is Friday, so we're going to start off on a great note and hope for a great weekend. And I will ask the Premier, as he gets himself adjusted, to come to the lectern and give his remarks. Premier, good morning and thank you.
Good morning and thank you, Kyria. Apologies again, of course, I just concluded a cabinet meeting. Certainly happy to be here, giving updates to the people of the Virgin Islands. I want to greet the Financial Secretary, Mr. Jeremiah Fred, Deputy Financial Secretary, Mr. Jeremy Vanterpool, Permanent Secretary in the Premier's Office, Carolyn Stout-Igwe. Of course, thank GIS for their facilitation. And again, I say good morning to those persons who are viewing via the power of technology and those listening on radio. I'm pleased to provide this comprehensive update on several matters of national and regional importance, beginning with the status of the implementation of the recommendations of the 2022 Commission of Inquiry report. On the 7th May 2025, the Government of the Virgin Islands submitted its self-assessment report to the Overseas Territories Minister, the Honourable Stephen Doughty, MP, marking the culmination of the implementation of the 48 recommendations of the COI report. In this submission, we noted that the 2 remaining legislative pieces, the Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2024 and the Public Assistance Amendment Act 2024, require detailed regulations for full implementation. I'm pleased to confirm that Cabinet has approved both sets of regulation, which are in force. The self-assessment report also reinforces our unwavering commitment to long-term reform through the Governance Reform Transition Plan, approved by Cabinet on the 30th April 2025. Even before formal approval, public officers had already begun implementation, ensuring momentum was not lost. Key components of this reform effort include the following: establishing a dedicated governance reform unit within the Premier's office, tracking and monitoring the implementation of 17 laws, 10 policies, and supporting processes, launching a new government website on the 4th July 2025, with an ongoing rollout to all ministries and departments to ensure greater public access to information, ongoing public education around the reforms, designing a process reform action plan to improve efficiency and service delivery in government, preparing to integrate governance and public service reform, leveraging technology for a modern public service. training and development opportunities for public officers, including advanced internships and attachments. These initiatives reflect our full ownership of the reform process. We have maintained the successful mechanisms that supported COI implementation, such as regular meetings of senior managers and consistent collaboration with the Governor's Office. Cabinet continues to receive updates to ensure alignment and accountability. My upcoming meeting in London with Minister Doughty forms part of the comprehensive assessment process he announced during his visit in November 2024. The assessment includes the Governor's final review, public input, and feedback from Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office officials. I'm confident that these elements taken together will affirm our government's belief the Virgin Islands has fulfilled the spirit, intent, and letter of the framework agreement. Therefore, it would be just for the Order in Council, which would have suspended the Virgin Islands Constitution, be lifted following the completion of this assessment, restoring full democratic self-governance to our people. I now want to brief the media on another significant reform, the implementation of a new beneficial ownership legitimate interest regime, which took effect on 1st July 2025. This new regime represents a measured, responsible approach to transparency and access. A transitional period is currently underway to allow for user testing, the issuance of guidance, and the system's population. We share the same objectives as our partners in the United Kingdom: transparency, responsible governance, and practical law enforcement cooperation, along with a strong shared commitment to the fight against illicit finance. Importantly, we are delivering real and practical cooperation. UK law enforcement already has 24/7 access to our beneficial ownership data. Through the Economic Deterrence Initiative, we continue to work closely with the UK's National Crime Agency to strengthen sanctions enforcement and to mitigate circumvention risks. This arrangement will remain unchanged. What is changing is the potential access for parties outside of law enforcement. This will only be permitted when there is a clear, lawful basis connected to preventing or investigating financial crime. This is what we mean by legitimate interest. Each request will be rigorously reviewed. If it meets the legal test, it will be approved. If not, it will be rejected. We have also incorporated safeguards, including where appropriate notifying companies when their data is requested. This regime is not about denying access, but about protecting individual privacy, safety, and constitutional rights. The original bar system was globally respected. We expect the upgraded Virgin system to meet, if not exceed, that standard. Reform of this nature is complex and must be done deliberately and correctly. This is not about doing less. It is about doing it right by our constitutional and legal framework. This new regime strikes the right balance. It protects our international reputation, safeguards our economy, and upholds the rule of law and the rights of our people. From the 28th to the 29th of June, I was honored to visit the Dominican Republic to participate in a national celebration recognizing the historical contributions of the Leeward Islands diaspora, including many Virgin Islanders, who migrated in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to work in the sugar industry. These individuals, known as Cocolos, made enduring contributions to Dominican society. One of the greatest tragedies of this migration was the sinking of the schooner Fancy Me on the 23rd July 1926, which claimed the lives of over 50 Virgin Islanders, including members of my own family. I was proud to attend a monument dedication ceremony in San Pedro and the launch of a book on the history of the Cocolos, sponsored by the Dominican Foreign Ministry under the leadership of Foreign Minister Roberto Alvarez. The ministry has also committed to an English translation and helping families from the Virgin Islands and other islands locate the graves of their ancestors. I was joined by my special envoy, Mr. Benito Wheatley. I welcome the participation of the foreign ministers of Antigua and Barbuda and St. Kitts and Nevis, who share personal ties to the Cocolo history. The Dominican Republic is an emerging partner in trade, tourism, archaeological preservation, and we will continue to engage meaningfully. From the 6th to the 8th of July, I participated in the 49th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM in Montego Bay, Jamaica, under the chairmanship of Prime Minister the Most Honourable Andrew Holness. We held robust discussions on key issues including security, climate change, regional trade, digital economy, reparations, and the situation in Haiti. We affirmed that our region needs a stable security environment and that increased intra-CARICOM trade and stronger ties with Africa and Latin America are critical to our future. Preparations for COP30 in Belém, Brazil were also central, particularly the need to tie climate finance to the vulnerability of small island developing states. On the digital front, we discussed how our economies must benefit more decision-making process. The principle of solidarity, these issues alone, we must tackle them together. As Premier, I remain committed to advancing the interests of the Virgin Islands at home and abroad through strong governance, responsible economic policy, and meaningful regional and international partnerships. Thank you for your kind attention, and I'll now receive any questions from the media. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Very good, comprehensive remarks. Media, I know that you've been waiting for a minute. Let me just first apologize for my cough. So I'm going to apologize now because, you know, I get all sorts of texts. I apologize for the cough. But I just wanted to not delay any further. We said before that we've expanded the question into 4 questions per media house. I hope that satisfies you, at least temporary. And so we're going to invite the media to go ahead and ask whatever questions they deem necessary based on the Premier's remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Premier Ron Brandt of Tweetful Media, thank you for your time. I will begin with your announcement that you are expected to have an upcoming meeting with Minister Gotti. Premier, how confident are you in your ability to return to the territory after that visit with the ordering council lifted? Obviously, it's a conversation for quite a while, and conversations have happened before. What's different around this time that kind of reassures you that this is possible?
Well, I'm confident that we've done everything that we've been asked to do. I'm confident that we have delivered reform, most robust reform in the history of the Virgin Islands. I'm confident that we are in a much better place than we were in May 2022. And I would expect that the Minister Doughty would recognize that progress and see that the ordering council is not necessary and lift it. He has to make a recommendation to Foreign Minister David Lammy, and it would be my hope and wish that he makes that recommendation because you've really done a lot of work, and I would say it's time to move on.
And if not, if that recommendation is not successful, what would you say would be the media's next approach?
I try my best not to engage in hypotheticals.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens when we go there. I'm going to represent as best I can on behalf of the people of the territory the need to have that order in council lifted. I will fight my hardest, and hopefully we come back successful.
Speaking of representation, Premier, you recently returned from the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. I want to speak about precisely some specific takeaways in representing the territory and networking with fellow leaders. What have you been able to say were some of your biggest takeaways?
As associate members, I would say that we received a very warm embrace from our CARICOM colleagues. And what I like to say is we've been a part of CARICOM for some time. When the meetings are called, for the last few years, we've been very consistent in attending. And that consistency in participation, interest, and attendance, I believe, has yielded great results. We have a great familiarity with the Secretariat and all our colleagues, and all of them have pledged their support to the Virgin Islands, whatever our difficulty, whether it is in advancing along the path of self-determination, whether it's the Commission of Inquiry process that we have taking place right now, the question of the order in council. Now, all of those things, our colleagues have made very firm affirmations that they support us fully. And they're not just willing to support us privately, they are willing to support us publicly. And of course, they embraced the associate members and also clarified that associate members have, upon application and meeting the criteria, the opportunity for full membership, which will extend the benefits that we currently have if we are to indeed apply and receive full membership in CARICOM. But CARICOM is a power. It's a power in the region. Until you actually go to the meetings and you see CARICOM meeting with, the Secretary of State of the United States government, or meeting with the President of Brazil, which is, part of the G20, or meeting with, the President of France or somebody like that, you don't realize how much diplomatic weight CARICOM carries, and that is only because of the collective. And we have a historic, I would say, obligation to be able to unify ourselves with our brothers and sisters across the region, because we have common challenges, and our destiny is really tied together. In terms of specifics, I'll go to some more specifics. Cooperation around security. That was a kind of hallmark of Andrew Holness's, Prime Minister Holness's chairmanship. He had an expo on security. I was extremely impressed with the expo on security. And I walked away from Jamaica with plans to be able to see how we can increase cooperation on security. They had lots of technical expertise in the area, and I believe that we can benefit from that. So we have a National Security Council meeting shortly after this press conference, and that's going to be one of the points I'll be making in national security. How can we increase cooperation and benefit from the capacity that exists in Jamaica? Climate change, of course. We continue to advocate collectively on climate justice. We are preparing for COP30 in Brazil, where we will launch our climate change trust fund. But also we continue to advocate on behalf of overseas territories who are locked out of climate finance. And our colleagues in CARICOM have pledged to support us in that. Of course, we have the 5 Cs in CARICOM. CARICOM, the Caribbean Communities Climate Change Center. And of course, they have been a valuable partner for us on climate change. I mean, I can go on and on, but those are the 2 things that stand out. And perhaps maybe I'll just add regional trade. The the CARICOM is making great progress on regional trade, and very soon I believe they will implement a ferry service that will be able to carry goods and people throughout the Eastern Caribbean. And I believe from a trade standpoint, we'll be able to benefit from that with goods coming from as far as Suriname and Guyana.
Thank you for that. Just to follow up, you mentioned two things, self-determination as well as security. And I want to start with the security aspect. One of the things that was, I would say, essentially promised to the people of the Virgin Islands would have been a crime summit.
Yes.
What are the intentions to perhaps revisit that?
Yeah, that's currently being planned. In fact, when I go to National Security Council, the Cabinet Secretary is going to give an update on the plans for the crime summit. It's actively being planned, and I believe they'll present some options for specific dates. It's going to be sometime in the third quarter, but we'll have a specific date very soon. But the plans for the crime summit are going very well.
And finally, Premier, you mentioned CARICOM's support for self-determination in the British Virgin Islands. Now, the conversation has been ongoing for quite some time, but as leader of government business, what is being done, do you think, to really prepare the people of the Virgin Islands for not only the conversation, but to move towards that consideration of self-determination?
Thank you for that question, Brother Grant. Last year we had a visiting mission from the C24, which is the Decolonization Committee of the United Nations, and they produced a report. And some of the takeaways from their report is that we need to do more education. There's a great deal of education that has to be done for persons to advance along the journey of self-determination. I agree with that assessment. We have a recommendation from the Constitutional Review Commission that we establish a decolonization commission. And the decolonization commission's, I would say, primary purpose and goal would be to educate the population as it pertains to self-determination. First of all, persons need to be educated to the fact that the United Nations, all the nations of the world, have said that colonialism is not something that can endure perpetually. Most nations in the world have come out of this colonial relationship. 200-300 nations out of the world, have come out of this colonial relationship. But we have 17 remaining non-self-governing territories. And the United Nations has said that all 17 must enter into a different type of arrangement, one which is not unequally yoked, so to speak, with a administering power that has all the power, and then persons who don't have power. They're subjected to the power of these administering states. The United Kingdom themselves have signed on to these UN declarations. So we need to educate persons about that process. And of course, we would be in a much better position to advance on our journey of self-determination than many nations would have been in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We have a well-developed economy, one of the leading finance centers in the world, and a world-class tourism destination where people from all over the world come here and enjoy themselves. We have to continue to build the organs of government. We have to build our international diplomacy, as we are doing with our relationship in the region and further afield. We have to continue from a social perspective, developing our people from a social perspective. We have to continue along the path of training and education. Of course, infrastructural development. All of these things are part of the journey of us maturing as a people. And it's a process. There's no one point where you're perfect, but you are continuing along a pathway of building, of nation building, which I have to take this opportunity to congratulate Kareem Nelson Hall and the VI Icon Awards. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend. I attended the inaugural event. It was fantastic. But one of the things I take away from that event is that we are on a journey of nation building. We have to celebrate that journey of nation building, It's not going to be one particular point, where we become something else. It's a journey that we're on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ron Grant from 284 Media. Very good questions. I hope you were happy with the amount of questions. I'm going to ask the next representative to please rise and give us your name and tell us which media house you represent.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Sean Connolly, Business Editor of the DBO Beacon. Court papers reveal that the FSC and the Virgin Islands Deposit Insurance Corporation first started raising red flags about the Bank of Asia last July, a full year ago. When did you become aware of their concerns as Premier and Finance Minister?
Sorry, repeat it one more time.
Okay. The FSC and VIDIC started flashing red flags about the Bank of Asia and the way it was conducting business last July, a year ago. When did you find out about their concerns as Finance Minister and Premier?
I'm not sure how much of this information is public, so I don't want to reveal anything that I shouldn't reveal.
It's in
But
the papers.
but I'll say to you that
It is public.
I was briefed some weeks ago about an audit that the Financial Services Commission conducted, and I think as a result of that audit, we had some concrete information on the situation. But at various times, I had conversations with VIDIC, and they said we had something that we had to pay attention to. But it was not until that audit took place that I would say that the Ministry of Finance was properly apprised of the situation with the Bank of Asia, and was able to communicate that to me through the Financial Secretary.
As a follow-up to that, they were flashing this a year ago, and you're saying that you were only made aware of it a couple of weeks ago. Isn't that concerning to the public that this was allowed to drag on without the Minister of Finance knowing for a year? Shouldn't you have had a better grip on it?
No, in terms of being briefed on the situation in Bank of Asia, I didn't say that. I was just briefed a few weeks ago. But I was briefed a few weeks ago about the particular audit that took place earlier this year.
When did you know about the concerns, though, first?
At various times, I don't have specific dates. At various times, VIDIC told me that there's something that we should pay attention to.
Okay, second question. The public documents show that on February the 26th, Deloitte's independent review of what was happening at the BOA said that the bank was insolvent. That was February the 26th. No action was taken until May the 29th. Why was it allowed to continue to operate for a further 3 months?
I don't want to answer questions that are more properly placed to the regulators. It's not a process that I'm administering or presiding over. VIDIC is the one that oversees it, along with the Financial Services Commission. They are the regulators, and perhaps your questions are better placed to them.
But you're the Premier and you're the Finance Minister.
Yeah, but there's a separation between the regulation of financial institutions and the political directorate. And I think that it's important to ensure that we keep everybody in their proper lanes. So the regulator has certain responsibilities, and of course I have certain responsibilities.
Okay, to follow up to that though, wearing your Minister of Finance and Premier hats,
Yes.
does it not concern you that Deloitte said that the bank was insolvent on February the 26th and no action was actually taken until May the 29th? Does that not concern you, and shouldn't it?
Not necessarily, because of course the regulators would have been going through their particular process. And I think perhaps maybe what you need to do is become a little bit more aware of the process that the regulators go through. And I believe the regulators were being extremely responsible. When you go into liquidation, that's really almost like a final step.
Okay, you mentioned Vidic there. They've been incredibly silent, particularly for a government agency throughout all this. Who's actually been running Vidic? Because the CEO has now left, looking for a new one. She was reported to be unhappy about what was happening there. What is going on with Vidic? Who's in charge?
Well, of course, Vidic has a well-qualified board led by Mr. Ian Smith. They have persons who fully have a full grasp of the process which is taking place right now. And I know they've appointed persons to be able to oversee Vidic in the interim. But of course, they will go through a process of recruiting a new CEO.
Okay, as a follow-up to that, obviously Vidic moved after the mystery $5 million of public money was deposited. You've gone on record before saying that you didn't know about the deposit, and you've said that the Financial Services Junior Minister, Lorna Smith, didn't know about the deposit. So who actually did make or authorise the deposit, and how can you rule out other people if you don't know who actually made the deposit? Surely you do. Those situations can't coalesce.
Okay, let me just make sure I clarify on your earlier question. I mean, you didn't intimate anything, but I just want to say for clarity that Lisa Violet, former Vidic CEO, her resignation has nothing to do with the Bank of Asia. Just for clarity, I know various persons would have intimated one thing or the other.
I didn't say that.
I know you didn't. I'm just going to clarify since the topic came up. Her resignation had absolutely nothing to do with the Bank of Asia. Predates, those discussions predated the Bank of Asia situation. Okay, as it pertains to the deposit of the $5 million, as you would know, Sean, I commissioned an audit of that. I would say in addition to that, the Auditor General is also looking into the issue. So I say let's wait for that report to come back, and then we'll know all the details surrounding that $5 million deposit.
Yeah, but I made a specific point though, that how can you rule out other people that you say that you definitely know didn't make the deposit if you don't know who actually did make the deposit? That doesn't seem logical.
Whether I know or not, I prefer not to provide information piecemeal. I would prefer just for the report to come out, and then everybody can have all the information, and then they can come to whatever conclusions they want to come to.
Are you saying you might know them? Do you know or don't you know?
I think this line of questioning has been exhausted.
And
well,
Sean, I have expanded the questions to 4, and you have actually got into that. So if my counting is correct.
So I just got one more.
No.
Beneficial ownership.
No.
I can take it. It's okay. Yeah, beneficial ownership. Yeah, that's fine.
So now you're getting 5. Premier is making me look bad, but go ahead.
Last week, as you know, the Tory ex-Deputy Foreign Secretary, Sir Andrew Mitchell, and a prominent Labour MP, they wrote in the House magazine, which is the in-house journal of the British Houses of Parliament, that the British government shouldn't accept your beneficial ownership regime, that there is an ordering council already existing, a different one, to the effect that that London could step in and rearrange things, and they want them to do that. What's your response to that? Do you think they should butt out, or do you think they have a point? Because although you say that you covered best international practice in your new regime, Transparency International said it's a threat to journalists, because journalists' names will be given to the people that they're inquiring about, and Transparency International say that this could lead to intimidation of journalists.
Well, in the finalized policy and the regulations, names of journalists will not be given. So just to correct that. In terms of Andrew Mitchell, I do disagree with him. I think that's colonialism. I don't think the world should tolerate that level of or any form of colonialism. I would say, of course, that we should be treated fairly. based on standards from multilateral bodies. This standard is an evolving standard, and we've been responsible in being able to balance the protection of constitutional rights with the need to be able to fight illicit finance and for the transparency necessary to do so. So I'm pleased that we've come up with a good balance, and I don't think we're going to persuade persons like Andrew Mitchell, but we hope that most persons will be balanced, and when they look at the information, they would find that we've been a responsible partner in the fight against illicit finance.
He should buy out then, should he?
I'll let you come to the conclusion, but I don't agree with him. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Sean.
Cindy Rose at Global Berry Media. I've been scolded, so I'm not allowed to go last.
I requested, not schooled. Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, just so the public doesn't come like Carrie, that was just a joke. 4 CARICOM member states, Barbados, Belize, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and Dominica, will implement full free movement of nationals by October 1, 2025, which all CARICOM members signed on to. As an associate member of CARICOM, what is the BVI stance on the full free movement of nationals within the region, and what effects, if any, do you envisage for the BVI?
Yeah, we wouldn't implement full movement of people, and not all entities in CARICOM signed on to full free movement. For instance, the Bahamas is not a part of that. There are perhaps some other nations who are not a part of that. I don't think St. Kitts and Nevis is a part of that. But various entities in the Caribbean have different situations, and that wouldn't necessarily work for us. We have a small population. We already have, I would say, quite a number of nationalities who have come from other places to contribute to the building of the Virgin Islands. And I think we're in a different situation than most of the other bigger territories and the nature of their particular economies. So we wouldn't be signing on to that.
Okay. My next questions are about the Bank of Asia.
Yes.
You will obviously have read the offshore alert article that came out last night, accurately summarizing VIDIC's application to appoint liquidators over the Bank of Asia, and the application itself. The FSC supported the application. The application is a damning document in regards to those overseeing Bank of Asia in particular. It also validates the detailed reporting of my media house. Given that the key events evidenced by VIDIC, the FSC, and Deloitte occurred while the junior minister Lorna Smith was on the bank's board, and in large part as its chairman, do you continue to stand behind her?
Well, unfortunately, I have not been able to read the offshore alert yet, but I will read it. But until I actually read the offshore alert, I wouldn't really comment on its contents. But just to say, of course, when I gather all the information, we'll be able to come to conclusions about everyone's role in the Bank of Asia situation. And until then, of course, until information tells me otherwise, I do continue to stand by Lorna Smith, who's my junior minister responsible for financial services.
All right, I have a follow-up to that, which may sound the same, but you stated that we should wait for the internal audit, where you said that before.
This is in regard to the $5 million, yeah.
Yes, and you've spoken to this being handed over to the Auditor General?
Yes, the Auditor General also is looking into it. Yeah.
I'm glad you put that out. I didn't want to put it out.
Okay, sure.
Deloitte has produced a report. So what we now know is that there is an investigation ongoing for a year. Right? Deloitte has produced a report. An agency that was formed under your administration and is within your portfolio,
right,
filed multiple sworn affidavits in support of the application. So we have an investigation going on or went on through Deloitte. Again, it's damning to people in your cabinet and others who were tasked with overseeing.
When you say in my cabinet, who are you
Well,
referring to?
I mean, your cabinet, right? You guys make up the government, your ministers. And the truth is, the Bank of Asia is a major entity
Okay.
in the Virgin Islands, and my colleague asked some questions,
Right.
and it doesn't look responsible, neither for the ministers or you as the head of financial services and banking,
Mhm.
that you guys really had no idea that this was crumbling, right? So that's what I'm referring to. I'm just putting the onus on the entire cabinet.
Yeah, well, let me just say, since Lisa Violet has been the CEO of Virgin Islands Deposit Insurance Corporation, I would say she's been very engaging. And at every step of the way, she's provided me with updates with the information that she had available to her. And I appreciated her engagement with me. And I think that Vedic was doing a good job. And of course, Financial Services Commission as well, they have responsibility for the supervision of banks. Based on the information that was presented to me, of course, they also were taking care of their responsibilities as a supervisory entity. And of course, I was briefed about the audit that took place for the Bank of Asia, and some of the information that came about as a result of that audit. How early I was briefed, that would be for internal discussion.
Well, you kind of tried to give us an idea, but as you said, the investigations will figure everything out.
Yes.
But my question was based on all of this, where I think that all of you are compromised. Do you still stand with your junior minister? It sounds like the same question, but it's a very different question.
No, I
Do
wouldn't.
you stand with her until all those
Yeah,
investigations
I wouldn't say that we're compromised. But I would say, of course, this, as always in any situation, it's an unfortunate situation that has to do with Bank of Asia in terms of it becoming insolvent. We'll gather all the information, and then we'll see what lessons that we can learn. And if, of course, there's need for accountability, the entities responsible for that accountability should ensure that we have full accountability.
Okay. Turning to the government's $5 million. Do you have a date when the money was placed on the bank? You would obviously notice from Vidic's application that huge sums had gone missing. Well, you're saying that you haven't read.
Not as yet. The
or-
offshore, not as yet.
Which is a little concerning, but I guess you're the premier, you're busy. What would you agree with what is contained in your agency's application, or do you disagree? Which you can't respond because you have not read it.
Not as yet.
I'll go to my follow-up question.
Okay.
Did you sign off on approvals for Vidic to secure reinsurance?
No, I don't think that's within my role. I think Vedic is run by a board. So that those are questions better put to the board of Vedic.
Okay. Well, since they don't respond either, you can't get any answers from them. Can I leave it with you, seeing that these entities under your portfolio?
So tell me the specific question. You want to know if they have?
Know if there was reinsurance signed off on.
So I'll have the FS respond.
Oh, perfect.
Uh-huh.
I forgot you were here.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for that question. It's not a mandate of the VIDIC to provide reinsurance. So therefore, they could not have provided.
Okay. So, Carrie, if I can.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So it kind of brings me back to this concern I have, and others do. If Vidic, because I don't know the legislation that upholds Vidic, so maybe you can tell us. If Vidic doesn't have the money for the depositors, if Bank of Asia goes under, where would they get the money? Would the BVI government and its first become responsible for this money?
There are many options in which that they can finance to cover the deposits. If you take a look in the legislation, they can ask for additional premiums from the existing banks that is part of the insurance corporation. They can also ask for a loan to raise those funds. And government can be also the lend of last resort. If all things fail and they cannot go through those routes, they can also come to government to support that particular area.
So the government doesn't automatically become liable?
No.
And could I add access to the liquidation process and the identification of assets that can also the available assets of the institution can be used to fulfill the obligations to the depositors.
But they don't really have any assets, so.
Well, I don't think you should. I know you've done some reporting, but I don't think you have all information. Okay. So there's still more information. I just say be patient and allow some more information to come out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
As evidence in the application, Bank of Asia was in serious financial trouble dating all the way back to 2022. The government's first $5 billion was deposited in August 2023, and then again in 2025, after FSC had basically given directive to Bank of Asia to cease taking in monies or giving loans. How is it, as finance minister, such a grave financial error has once again happened within your portfolio, and as a steward of the people's money, has Accountant General Ainsley been made to answer? Has a former Deputy Premier for Financial Services and Banking, now Junior Minister Lorna Smith, been made to answer? Is there any reason for us to believe that funds being deposited were orchestrated by you, both of you, you and your deputy at the time? I'm not gonna ask.
It's like a B, C, D. How many letters does this question have?
I want to be mindful.
Okay.
Because you guys like to infer things, so I'm trying my best this morning.
So help us to help you. Ask one at a time. We'll let you get all the questions in, I promise.
Yes. No, the Premier understands. It's one question, but it sounds like a lot, but he understands exactly what I'm saying. I don't want to say in any way or infer that you may have benefited in any way. Professionals and insiders are comparing what's going on with Bank of Asia to a Ponzi scheme.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, I think you're taking it lighter than
No.
it is.
No, I'm not taking it light.
So,
But let me try and see if I can answer some of the questions. I'll start with the ones.
Who's going to be held accountable? Who's being held accountable? Anywhere else in the world, you would have probably had to step down your junior minister, the accountant general. There's nothing happening, and I know there's some kind of audit going on. I don't know, but
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's important before any action is taken. I just said previously, if there's need for accountability for if wrongdoing is discovered, it's important for us to have that accountability. I'm in full support of accountability. When you said a financial error, you're talking specifically about the deposit of the money into the Bank of Asia?
specifically, and also how this bank has been managed or allowed to be managed for so long in our industry.
Well,
inside the jurisdiction.
that speaks specifically to the regulator. So it's also important to ascribe responsibility where legally and based on the structures of the government where the responsibility lies. And I think in accountability, even though we want to scapegoat one person or the other, whether for our own political biases or personal biases, it's important that we, in terms of having an accountable system, that we identify where responsibility lies, and when persons either do things which are wrong or they make mistakes, that they're held accountable for that. Okay, in terms of the specific.
Do you mind if I just interject really
Sure,
quickly?
sure.
I just want to clear up, since I'm up here,
Yeah.
that there is nothing personal at all about what's going on with Bank of Asia and reporting it. It's actually the duty of the media to report these instances and to keep the government accountable. So there's nothing personal or political about Bank of Asia besides the fact that no one seemed to realize that there was a time.
No, I didn't say it's anything personal or political about reporting on Bank of Asia. What I said is sometimes persons want to ascribe blame or responsibility to particular actions based on personal bias or political bias. And that happens in the world, unfortunately. But I said it's important for us to properly ascribe where responsibility lies. And when we discover whether something was done wrong or a mistake was made, that we hold persons accountable. But in terms of responsibility for the deposit, as I said before, I will await the Auditor General internal audit to complete their investigations, and then we have to have some conclusions about what you stated about persons made to answer for whatever role they may have played. As it pertains to being directed by myself, categorically, that's categorically false. And of course, the Junior Minister of Financial Services, she certainly didn't have the authority to be able to direct any person to make a $5 million deposit. You mentioned the deposit in 2023. It was a short-term CD, a 6-month CD. 3 months, 6 months, I'll confirm that. But monies were placed in there, and then the monies were received back once the CD had matured, plus interest.
What was the interest?
I'll just leave the rest of that there. But I'm just said to you, in 2023, the government got invested in a certificate, a short-term certificate of deposit, and they got back the money plus the return.
Well,
and
you
this
only got
this
back the $5 million.
and
the
this
30,000 stayed on the bank, and that's what you made.
and this would have been not just the practice in the Bank of Asia. This would have been the practice across multiple financial institutions. Okay, but I'll just leave that there. Let's await the results of whatever the investigation is, and then we can come to conclusions.
Based on the conclusions, would you yourself be willing to step down as Premier?
On the conclusions, I've done nothing wrong.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying based on
So I would say all of those,
At the end of the day, Premier,
all of those like yourself who would wish not to see me in this particular
I actually
position.
don't mind. I love to see you out there shaking hands.
Let's just go through the democratic process in the Constitution. You can support whatever party or individual you would like to support, and let's go through that. But you're not gonna get a easy out of me stepping down, so to speak. Right?
Ms. Roseanne, you can't say I haven't been very lenient. You had 20 million questions. I know that JTV is chomping at the bits to get her turn. I hope that you're satisfied with this.
I'm at my end anyway.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for your questions.
I actually am.
And we are going to invite Miss Kathy Richards.
Good morning, Premier. Good morning, everyone. Kathy Richards, JTV. Well, I'm not going to continue along that line of the grilling on the Bank of Asia. I think my colleagues would have done an awesome job on that. But I want to go back to the Commission of Inquiry and the implementation of the recommendations.
Yes.
One of the things that we would have heard the governor reiterating so often whenever he gets on the platform to talk about this is the aspect of implementation, yes, we would have done the legislative aspects of all that was recommended, but he kept insisting that they must see these things come into action, see you doing certain things and not just there sitting and becoming wet on shelves. Where are we with that? Can we safely say that for the majority, if not all, we are successful in starting to implement, which would put us in a better position to safely say, you have nothing over us, you need to remove the ordering council?
Yeah, so let me just point out that we can't shift the goalposts, so to speak. When this process started, it had to do with the completion of the reforms in the framework agreement. And when you read the framework agreement, it's very specific about what needs to be completed, what needs to be done. Everything in the framework agreement we have completed. And we didn't agree with the ordering council in the first place, but at the very least, the United Kingdom, the Foreign Secretary David Lammy, Overseas Territory Minister Stephen Doughty should honor the commitments of removing the ordering council based on the completion of our written obligations in that framework agreement. But we are a responsible jurisdiction, so we will not simply complete actions and obligations under a framework agreement and then not ensure that we have follow-up. That's why cabinet passed a transition plan, and we are committed to fulfilling that transition plan, which includes, of course, education, which includes monitoring and evaluation of policies and laws, which includes building capacity, which includes training. It includes a number of other things. This is going to be led by is being led by the Premier's office. And of course, given all of the different obligations that we have as a government, I'm pleased that we are well along the way in terms of ongoing implementation.
Okay, all right, I will not dwell on that much longer. Let's come to climate change, and you spoke a bit about looking forward to that very important launch come COP30.
Yeah.
The atmosphere around the levy that is being collected from tourists continue to be a major concern. Implemented from 2017 to date, and not 1 cent has been used, best of my knowledge, for anything. And I would have heard you there on The Voice,
yes,
talking to that, saying that yes, the delay turns out to be for good, but when we would have waited 9 years to see a system start coming into place for that money to start using, the concern comes as how expedient are you going to be when it comes to making sure that the funds are dispersed in the right directions, so that the actions can now take place and not there billing interest in an account?
Yeah, well, I will also re-emphasize what I said on The Voice, Kathy. If we started spending the money right away from 2018 or whenever it was, the fund wouldn't have matured. It wouldn't have built up to a point where you can do substantial projects. Now, I believe, the financial secretary can correct me, I believe we would have transferred over $5 million to the Climate Change Trust Fund. And we know how much things cost, Kathy. You know, you have a substantial amount of money now to be able to do something meaningful. And of course, the time has already passed in terms of it being, the years have passed without the fund being operationalized. But now it is. and I think the Climate Change Trust Fund Board is putting processes in place to be able to receive applications for the use of that money. And I believe that we have several opportunities to do projects that will help to build the climate resilience that we need in the Virgin Islands. And, you know, we've had a tough time over the past 7-8 years, Kathy, since we've been hit from the hurricane. I think a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit for the resilience that we've displayed. We've been devastated by one of the worst disasters in the history of the Virgin Islands or the history of the world. We got very little assistance from outside entities. We appreciate whatever the United Kingdom has done for us, but the reality is, due to the fact that we are overseas territory, due to the rules around ODA, due to the fact that we don't get any concessional financing or grants, very little was done for the Virgin Islands. We've had to rely on very expensive loans to rebuild the Virgin Islands. We are still here standing after one of the worst natural disasters in the history of the world. And we tend not to give ourselves credit. We've done well. We've done well. And as it pertains to the Climate Change Trust Fund, this is best practice across the world. Not many places in the world have it. We are a shining example of what a small island developing state can do to build climate resilience. I would say let's use all of the experience we've gained, all the capacity we've built. We use all of that to take our climate resilience to the next level.
So my question there was the expediency. How quick are we going to be giving those funds to the entities that so need it and not have it a drawn out thing?
Yeah, well, I have great confidence in the persons who we have on the Climate Change Trust Fund Board, who's going to be administering the funds. I believe once they've received the funds now, and once, of course, we officially launch the fund, I believe that they'll have a number of projects that will move forward expeditiously.
That question came from having read Honourable Fraser's
Yes.
message when he said, you guys need to take it very seriously when it
Yes.
comes to this person. And you're concerned, though, when you spoke about entities that are likely to tap in on those funds, you spoke at length about the BVI Electricity Corporation.
Yes.
We also understand that CDB that is going to be working along with that initiative with BVIEC. But what we did not hear from you, which you have always hugged as your baby, is the injection into the tourism industry when it comes to accessing NAFA, because that is one of the key areas where that levy was implemented.
Yeah, and that is a challenge, of course. I know funds have been transferred to the tourist board out of the levy through government subvention. I would say that, through the budgeting process, I have to work with the financial secretary and the team to ensure that the money coming through the environmental levy supplements the budget of the tourist board rather than replaces it. So we're gonna work through that as we go through another budgeting process. But we have an additional challenge that impacts us increasing the recurrent expenditure, which is when you give grants to statutory boards, that increases the recurrent expenditure, and it has to do with the ratios under the protocols for effective financial management. We have to have a particular ratio of recurrent expenditure to our liquidity, and that can provide somewhat of a cap on the level of money that you can give to an entity like the tourist board. It's something that I want to solve. So I'm going to be talking to the financial secretary and the team about how we can solve that challenge, because we do want to provide more resources to the tourist board to be able to market the destination. And we can explore some options in terms of how we can do that without the challenge of the ratios. But the ratios are a problem to us. One of the things I'm going to be speaking to Minister Doughty about when I go to the United Kingdom are the restrictive nature of these ratios in us being able to build our economy. And concerns have also been shared with other overseas territories on the ratios, Turks and Caicos, Cayman Islands, etc. So I think it's time for us to review those ratios. It's probably been about 13 years or so since those ratios have been implemented, and I think it's time for us to revisit the ratios.
Let me continue on the tourism front. While you would have reported glowing numbers, increasing numbers in the amount of persons we have coming into the territory.
We're doing well, Kathy. We're doing very well.
Doing well, but we need to fill that well with good water, and as a part of that good water comes with the facilities to which we welcome those people and which we use. Our ports, there have been so many years that we've been talking about improving Virgin Gorda dock. There have been so many years, and we still feel that when you walk on that dock in Trellis Bay, sometimes when the wind is so heavy, you literally got to build more weight on your body to ensure that you don't lose gape and fall overboard.
Yeah.
That's been like that for years. We hear you cry out so much for improve the dockage at Doggle.
Yeah.
We hear Anigata is like left alone in the wind out in the world, but yet we bask in the numbers.
Yeah.
But what that experience looks like, happy to have the numbers. Where we go, we hear no plans. The coming season is soon.
Yeah.
We hear no plans.
Well, Kathy, as I said, we're sometimes very hard on ourselves. We've done a lot as it pertains to infrastructure since 2019. We've spent, we basically expended a whole $65 million loan. We have a $100 million loan that we have. That's in addition to monies from our consolidated fund and monies from other areas that we've been investing in rebuilding our society. So we are working. There's a lot of things taking place, moving forward, but I can appreciate that sometimes the work doesn't happen as quickly as possible. I mean, you mentioned Dark Hole. We built a whole facility at Dark Hole. And it was years persons were calling for that facility at Dark Hole. We did a facility there at Trellis Bay not too long ago. And the ports, because of the increased cruise passengers, the ports has a very healthy bank account now. Same thing with the airport authority. We're making improvements to the airport facilities at Beef Island. In fact, we've transferred money to the airports authority to expand there. We're going to be looking at extending the airport runway. I mean, we are doing work, but you're always going to be able to find something that hasn't been done. That's just the nature of government. That's just the nature of the world that we live in. There's always something to do, and we're going to do it. We're going to do what needs to be done.
Am I reading that you are at a level of comfortability that the existing facilities
Never comfortable. There are urgent matters that always have to be addressed. So what we got to do is push ourselves to be more efficient, more effective, and to do what needs to be done. I'm not comfortable. We are. I believe by the end of the year we'll surpass the best numbers we've had in our history in tourism. But I'm not satisfied with that. I mean, I want us to take our tourism to 2 million passengers.
I'm not talking about the numbers, but I'm talking about the ports facilities.
Yeah, I'm not satisfied with that either. I want to do more. I want it to be done more quickly, more effective, and that is our collective challenge. But it's a difference between making it seem like nothing is happening, which, you know, we often do. We don't recognize progress. It's important to be ambitious in terms of what needs to be done, and always hungry for more success, while at the same time celebrating along the journey that you've done well. So we have good tourism numbers. That's a good thing. Persons can smile. Give yourself permission to smile.
Well, but I did smile at
Because-
the beginning of that. I did say it and accept the well.
Because guess what? If the numbers were bad, we'd hear about it, right?
Yes.
If the numbers were bad, everybody would be making a fuss about it, and, you know, everything would be, you know, bad. But, you know, the numbers are good, so we can, we want to improve in a lot of different areas, but let's recognize that. Let's at least recognize that's a good thing for the Virgin
Yes, I
Islands.
did make the props because I did
Yes.
recognize and compliment you.
Thank
My
you.
last thing,
Yes.
one last thing. Premier, what's happening with admin complex?
I don't have the latest update on it, but I believe that they were going through a tender process. I know they were doing the demolding as well, if I remember correctly, Financial Secretary.
But this is what we keep hearing
I
all
think
the
we
time.
signed a contract for the demolding of the admin complex, but I believe that they've either issued tenders. I believe they may have already done the tenders. You know, tenders for the outfitting of the spaces. But
There's a deadline, there's a timeline for which we're looking at getting admin complex back in order.
yesterday,
Yesterday?
I want the admin complex to get moving.
Thank you so much, Premier.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Kathy from JTV. I have lost full control today. Everybody asked 50 million questions, which is happy for the audience and happy for the media, but also I have folks texting me, cussing me out, saying the Premier has to leave. So I want to say thanks to the media. I believe that you'll be happy today with the exhaustive amount of questions. Premier, thank you for your patience and for answering them so ably. As also FS, thank you. You definitely went in the hot seat today. BVI is a great pleasure to come to you every month. They're challenging me, and I know it's every month. We try to come every month to you to give you updates, and if need be, we will certainly come to you more than once a month. It is Friday today, July 11th, 2025. As usual, we say thank you. Have a great weekend. God bless you all, and we will see you soon.